Welcome everybody to another amazing episode of Wellness Warriors. Today I have an amazing warrior, Dr. Mindy Pelz.
Yep, you got it. Yeah.
Okay, all right. She's actually a fellow chiropractor, and we connected when she was hosting a women's summit.
Yep.
And just loved her energy, loved what she was doing.
Yep.
She actually interviewed me for one of her podcasts as well. So just wanted to reciprocate and introduce you to this amazing woman. She's high-powered, high energy. She's I like the way you put crazy passionate, because that's what I felt about you.
Thank
Definitely
you.
crazy passionate about helping families. She's in the trenches. We know that families have such a hard time maintaining their health and getting healthy. There's so many factors that work against families now. So she's got one of the largest holistic health clinics in Silicon Valley, and she's been at it for 22 years. She has a best-selling book called The Reset Factor, and now she has a tribe called the Resetter Tribe. And what they do is they support each other in fasting once a month for a week, right? Doing various fasts.
Yep.
So welcome, Dr. Mindy. Thanks so much for taking the time to be with us.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm excited to be here. And yeah, I too have enjoyed our conversation. So this is a fun new twist we can take in what we've already talked about.
That's right. That's right. So I've really encouraged women in our community, our clients, to really look at their eating habits. Obviously, essential number one is let food be your medicine, but it's beyond that. We have to understand the factors that go into creating cancer and the pathways that create cancer. And in my research and my work, I found that insulin resistance is a big factor, and learning how to slow down the inflammation. And you can do that by fasting, intermittent fasting, and of course the ketogenic diet, which I did, hardcore for 6 months, learned a lot. Now I kind of do, a modified, more alkaline green keto type diet. But let's talk about that in general. Let's talk about fasting and the keto diet for women. So first of all, let's talk about the power of fasting on our immune system. And we know our immune system is key when it comes to cancer. So I'll let you take it.
Yeah, and I would say there are several studies that have made fasting more mainstream. And one of those studies was Walter Longo's study that he did on people going through chemotherapy. What he found was, I'm sure you talk about a lot here, is that chemotherapy wipes out the immune system. So he was curious if fasting could be used as a tool to reboot that immune system. And that's exactly what he found, is that on the third day of a water fast, that the white blood cells would be recycled and regenerated because of the production of stem cells. So the stem cells would go in there, repair the white blood cells, and boom, you get this immune boost. And it's kind of like the ketogenic diet. Like the ketogenic diet was started for epilepsy. Fasting really became mainstream for people dealing with cancer.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the studies also show that women that are doing traditional treatments and do the fasting have fewer side effects, better, blood markers, faster shrinkage of the tumors, fewer side effects, all of that. So there's definitely some benefits to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so let's talk about the different types of fasting. I mean, you do the resetter diet, and you do that resetting once a month. So let's talk about that. What are the ways to do that?
So I think that's also a really interesting conversation, that most people don't realize that fasting's not as simple, or doesn't have to be as narrow as just giving up food. There are a lot of different ways to fast. I've come up with about 7 different variations that I've seen based off of science. I like the science part of fasting. So, and I think, intermittent fasting is the most popular one that I see that people are applying. There's great studies, you and I talked about this, that there's great studies on reoccurrence of breast cancer going down by 70% in women that just intermittent fast after they have gone through the experience or on the backside of that. But there's also, we know things about like there's the fast mimicking diet, and there's block water fasts, and There's autophagy fasting, where you can go 17 hours without food. So what we do in the Resetters is we explore all the different fasts. Like my goal is to help people figure out what fast works best for them. So once a month, I take people through a 5-day experience. It's we do it either on my YouTube channel or on my Facebook group. And we've got hundreds of thousands of people that are fasting together. It's kind of like a game. Like I say, here are the rules. Here's how we're going to do it. And then here you can participate in any way that you want. And it's been incredible. Oh my gosh, like the stories we get of people not just losing weight, but really reversing chronic conditions is pretty miraculous.
It is. So let's talk about those 7 ones that you've explored so far. So let's discuss what exactly is intermittent fasting. What does that mean?
Yeah, and I think what I always want people to know is that if you're intrigued by fasting, intermittent fasting is the way to start. Like you don't just jump into a 3-day water fast. So start with intermittent fasting. In my book, it's 13 to 15 hours without food. And it's every day. That's usually the first thing people say, although there's variations on that. But a lot of people are living an intermittent fasting lifestyle. So you stop eating at 8 o'clock. So that's 4. And then the next morning you would eat like at 10 or 11. So you skip breakfast. And if you're new to that, I always say start by pushing your breakfast back an hour. Like you can ease into that. So that's what intermittent fasting, that's the research that Dr. Osumi, who won the Nobel Prize for autophagy, he discovered that at around 13 to 15 hours, the cell will, when it doesn't have sense food's coming, it will go in and start to detoxify itself. So he won a Nobel Prize for it. Pretty cool concept. We also know like 1,300% improvement in growth hormone when you go 13 to 15 hours. So there's some pretty cool things that happen with just intermittent fasting.
Awesome. Okay. So that's the number one.
That's the one. And I think everybody should, if you're like, I don't want to do it every day, that's fine, but just experiment with it. It's a fun way of eating. Okay.
So the one question that comes up often for me is, does it count? Like what if I need to take my supplements, or, what if I do my bulletproof coffee? Does that break the fast?
Right. So this comes up all the time on our platform. So for intermittent fasting, I would say supplements, medications, take them whenever you want to take them. So with coffee, tea in the morning, the general rule of thumb is if it spikes your blood sugar, it takes you out of a fasted state. Okay. So, but coffee might spike your blood sugar and it might not spike mine. So what I encourage people to do is take a blood sugar reading, then drink your cup of coffee, then a half an hour later, take another reading and see if your blood sugar goes up.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
Because it's different for everybody. And this question, people ask me, does a Diet Coke break a fast? I've had that question. I know.
I've had me drinking Diet Coke, really.
Yep. It's a whole nother discussion. When people ask me that, I'm like, okay, well, let me answer the first part of your question, and then let's talk about Diet Coke.
Right.
But yeah, it's personal. Our microbiome of our gut has a big impact on our blood sugar levels. Right. So everybody's microbiome is different. So that's a really good way to measure it is, does it raise your blood sugar? Took you out of a fasted state.
Yeah. Good point. Okay. Let's talk about another type of fast.
Okay. So once you've mastered that, the next one that I encourage people to do is a 24-hour fast. And we call it dinner to dinner fasting. And what's cool about this fast is MIT just recently put out a study that they found at 24 hours, your intestinal stem cells will regenerate. So anybody with a digestive issue, I really encourage once a week, once every couple of weeks, you want to throw in a 24-hour fast so that you can get that regeneration of the intestinal stem cells. Dr. Fung really brought it to our attention that the longer you go without food, the signal that you're giving your body is, hey, food's not coming, so why don't you go find the food you stored years ago? And that's where what happens is the intelligence of the body is like, oh, hey, I stored some down here in fat. I think I'm going to burn that. Right. So because none's coming in.
Right.
So I like 24-hour fasts as a way to repair the gut and the way for people to drop a little more weight.
Okay, so they eat dinner, they finish at 7, and they don't eat again until the next day. So that's
right. Yeah. Yeah. And an add-on to that fast is some people who are trying to lose weight, if once they get to dinner, if they're not hungry, we'll even have them go till the next day, do a 36-hour fast and go to the next day lunch. So typically that's for people trying to drop weight. I'll say, if you get to that point, then continue on.
Okay. All right. And what would they be doing throughout the day as far as drinking? Just water?
Yeah.
And
Water. You can do tea. I not, if you're really trying to get the maximum benefits, you don't want to be drinking buttered coffee all day long.
Right.
Again, the name of this fasting game is to be healthy. It's not to, be extreme. So, and extreme doesn't typically get us healthy. So tea, mineral water you can drink,
lemon water.
Yeah, lemon water. Again, you can test it with your blood sugar and see. What I find is that when most people start off, they start off with wanting some mineral water, wanting some tea, and then as time goes on, they just drink good old fashioned water. So, yeah, okay. And that seems to work okay. Okay. But the 24-hour is like I love seeing people do it on a semi-regular basis.
That's good. Yeah, that's a good idea. All right. Talk about another one.
Okay, next one, autophagy fasting. So
explain autophagy for our listeners.
Okay, so autophagy is where, like I mentioned, that when you end up taking food out of your diet for at least 15 hours, it's usually around 13 to 15, and I'll talk about where we see max autophagy. The human cells will decide to go in and detoxify themselves. So it's really the easiest way to understand autophagy is it's a way of self-detox. So the body will clean up the cells and use that for energy because it's not sensing foods coming in.
So it's like the recycling of old cells.
Yeah, it's a great way to recycle old cells. So, and there's no way to measure it. Everybody wants to know, how do I measure my autophagy? And nobody's created that yet. So we can measure ketones, we can measure blood sugar, we can't measure autophagy. But with autophagy fasting, I encourage people to go to 17 hours. And 17 hours is great because and with autophagy fasting, you also want to keep your protein down. So I'll explain that in a moment. But 17 hours is the sweet spot where they believe autophagy fasting or autophagy hits. And between 17 and 72 hours, you're going to get that maximum cellular detox where the cells are eating the toxins within. So I encourage people to try autophagy fasting. Again, you throw it into a variation that you create for yourself. But you go 17 hours without food, and then when you break your fast, you break it with fat. And the reason that you do that is what a lot of people do is they'll figure out that they can go a little longer. If I have an avocado, if I have a nut butter, I can maybe go a little longer. Maybe I can go 36 hours. So it's a training that for people to understand that fat can curb hunger. It can stabilize your blood sugar. So it's really just part of building a new habit for yourself. And then the other key to autophagy is making sure that you keep your protein under 20 grams. So this was also made popular by Walter Longo that we're seeing that if you eat over 20 grams of protein, it kicks you out of autophagy.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I'll ask you that question in a minute. Okay. So next one.
Okay, so that would lead me to the next one that is really popular is fast mimicking. So have you done fast mimicking diet?
I did. I did the Prolon.
Prolon. Yeah, what'd you think?
I did it several times. I found that fasting, just plain fasting, was easier than being tempted with a little bit of food. It's just like you're eating, but it's just not quite enough. But no, it definitely felt like I was in a fasting mode, though.
Yeah. So fast mimicking, again, was made popular by Walter Longo. And what he and his researchers, after they came out of their 3-day water fast for patients with cancer experiment, is they said, well, if it has this power on the immune system, but are we going to be able to get people to not eat for 3 days? We have to come up with a different approach. And so what they thought was, if I could keep calories down, if I could keep them under his or around 800 to 1,000 calories, and I can take away animal protein, and I can keep protein under 20 grams, because even vegetables have some protein in them.
Right.
What would happen to stem cell production? Now, in his original studies, I think he had him fast for 13 hours, but you have to eat 800 calories with no protein in the rest of your day. Like you said, that's very difficult. So the way that we teach fast mimicking is have one meal a day, take 800 calorie, make sure that meal is under 800 calories, make sure you're no animal protein, and that you're staying under 20 grams. Or you can do Prolon, which is a real turnkey system.
Because it's kind of in a box, and every day is labeled, and the food lessens towards the middle of the week, and then it builds back up. But the soups are good, and it would be nice if they could do everything organic. I think they're working on it, because the soups are organic. And
I just spoke with Joseph Anton last week, and I asked him, like, can you guys, I mean, it's really hard, those of us that are preaching organic, and we understand the power of fast mimicking, but if those two are not meeting, then organic has to be like number one rule of what you do when you eat. So he said they're trying to get it. They're trying to do it. They're also trying to make the packaging more biodegradable. So they're working on it.
Yeah, good. But those olives sure are good, though.
You learn real quickly that olives are like a faster's best friend.
I know, and they're from Spain, so they're really good. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
But fast mimicking diet, we in the Resetter group, we'll do. We've done some reverse engineering of it. Although Joseph Anton told me last week that there's a lot more to it than just the calories. But you can make it as simple as fast, do one meal a day, keep your calories under 800 calories, and your protein under 20 grams, no animal protein. If you want to sort of test what he did, it's for stem cell production. So his original studies with the fast mimicking diet were done on type 1 and type 2 diabetics. And he found that what ended up happening was the actual pancreatic cells that were damaged would actually regenerate. And that was after 3 months. What he did is 5 days a month for 3 months, and he saw regeneration of pancreatic cells in type 1 and type 2 diabetics.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, and what Joseph told me last week was that they really are diving into creating Prolon kits for people with different conditions. So you would go, if I have cancer, this is what I do. If I'm trying to, work for diabetes, this is what I do. So I think they're moving in that direction.
That's good because, I do have some clients that are type 1 diabetics and have breast cancer.
Yep.
So it's, they're working on two very major issues, but in the end, it's still all the same root cause, right? So,
yes, exactly. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Next.
So, other ones that are fun, dry fasting. This one comes up a lot. Have you dry fasted before?
No, I've not heard that.
Okay, so this is an interesting one. And here's what I'll tell you. I'll tell you what I tell my community, because the dry fasting became popular somewhere in the social media world over the last year. Became a rumor. I don't know if Jason Fung said it or not, that if you dry fast for 24 hours, you get the same benefits on cellular benefits as water fasting for 3 days.
Wow.
So everybody went crazy and was like, okay, let's dry fast. I'll take 1 day of dry fasting compared to 3 days of water. I have not found the science behind that. I will tell you the science that I have found on it. And it's done on people who practice Ramadan. So sun up to sundown, they do no food, no water. And that's what we recommend with dry fasting, that you do 12 to 24 hours. And the research that I can find is that it not only will, people are commenting that they can get into a deeper state of ketosis, but there's also a lot of production of BDNF that happens, which BDNF will repair the neurons in the brain. When BDNF goes up, serotonin will go up. So it is a really neat tool for brain health. But also, if you're trying to get into a deeper ketosis, dry fasting can be good. But no coffee, no food, no water. Some people even take it as extreme as to no shower, no brushing your teeth.
Wow.
So, yeah. But we don't advocate that.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's a good one. It's a good one. And then I think the last one, there's a lot of different variations that we spin off from there, but the last one and the Mac Daddy is a block water fast. And that's how we started this conversation. 3 days, you get this stem cell production. What we encourage people to do is, if you're comfortable at 3 days of water fasting, can you go 5? Because from day 3 to day 5, you are getting max stem cell production. So I have seen, it's crazy. I've seen frozen shoulders completely heal from a 5-day water fast. I've seen people who cannot lose weight for anything all of a sudden start to be able to drop weight finally after a 5-day water fast. Mm-hmm. I've seen patients, I have actually a chiropractor that I've been working with who has leukemia, and we've been seeing that his numbers are changing as he actually implemented a 3-day water fast every week to try to reboot his white blood cells. And it's worked incredibly well along with other things. Wow. So I usually say you want to do a 3 to 5 day water fast. For prevention, I think it's just a smart thing to do once or twice a year to really recycle the immune system and regenerate it. But if you have a chronic condition, those longer fasts can be miraculous. You just don't want to do it on your own.
Right.
You want to be coached. Yeah.
Always monitor and test.
Yeah.
All right. And lastly, I want to talk briefly about ketosis and the ketogenic diet. I mean, it became the big fad a few years ago, and keto this, keto that, take keto powders and put yourself in ketosis. And so what's a balanced and healthy way that we should, get into ketosis, and why would we want to do it?
Yeah. So I think that the most basic principle, you have to understand that ketones they're not always, but they can be a sign that your body is burning fat for energy. So we have 2 ways, I'm sure you've talked about this on here. We have 2 ways that you can burn energy, from sugar or from fat. Mm-hmm. So when you decide to take carbohydrates out of your diet, your body will make a switch over to now making ketones. And ketones are healing for the brain, so they can go up and regenerate the brain. They can heal other body parts, but I really think that the brain, it can heal mitochondria. The mitochondria, I'm sure you've talked about that here. The mitochondria love ketones. But you got to lower the carbs in order to get you over to that fat burning place. Mm-hmm. Now, I think the biggest question that it needs to be addressed is, were we made to be in ketosis all the time? And the answer to that is no. If you go and you look at how we're designed, we were designed to go without food for a long period of time. Back in the caveman days, when we had to go hunt for food, we needed to be able to have a fuel source that gave us energy and mental clarity so we could go hunt for food. But we were not meant to stay in ketosis all the time. So the biggest thing that I see is people don't trust going in and out of ketosis. You can have a ketogenic day, and the next day you could, do something different. You could be vegan the next day. You could up your protein the next day. So this is where variation is really important. And especially for women, if you stay in ketosis too long, what we're seeing is women, their hair is falling out, that's messing their cycles up, it's tanking their sex hormones.
Their thyroid, I know my thyroid was affected by it, so yeah. So
I like it as a tool. Like there's two ways to really get into ketosis. One is to lower the carbs and the other is to fast. Or you can do them both. Mm-hmm. So I like it as a tool, but I also really think that people should understand the goal is not to be into ketosis all the time.
Very good. I love that, because yes, as a metabolic reset, as a temporary tool to, help you with those, mTOR pathways. If you're healing from cancer, then yes, that's very, very important. And that's what I found. It definitely helped me, do that metabolic reset. Yeah. But long term, I don't see it as being a viable issue. So
yeah.
All right. Yeah. So Dr. Mindy, where can people find you and learn more about your amazing work?
Yeah. Well, you can join our resetters, and you can come fast with us. Okay. So my YouTube channel, we will do our monthly fast from there. The Resetter Collaborative is what it's called on Facebook. There's 25,000 people in there they're fasting fiends. So if you want any community support, that's a great place. And then we're actually doing a live event in January. I don't know when this podcast will come out, but and I'm bringing in Dr. Pompa and Dr. Shane Morris, who's head of systemic formulas, and we're bringing in a mindset coach to really talk about how do you create your own fasting lifestyle? How do you take all these fasts and find a pattern that works for you?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that, because you make it part of your lifestyle.
It doesn't, again, and I'm sure you've talked about this, we just don't, the idea that I need to show up as a vegan or a paleo or a keto, like we need to stop being so rigid with I fit in this camp and this style of eating. And so we need to do the same thing with fasting. There's a lot of different ways we can do it, and we can create a fasting lifestyle that has a ton of variation in it.
Totally. And ultimately, you have to check and test to see what works best for you, right?
That's right.
The numbers and the labs are the evidence. So I always encourage people, test, because that'll tell you. So
absolutely agree. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure. Mindy. Thank you.
Yeah, I had so much fun, and look forward to seeing you again sometime soon.
Great.
All right,
Thank you.
Next time, everybody, this is Dr. V sending you a big healing heart hug. Bye for now.